do. Rec centers are closed and things like that. Perfect segue, City Council President Brandon Scott. Perhaps you can address some of these issues.
And I'll be real quick. So, Stan is absolutely right? And everyone's absolutely right. And I know that, like, two people that hold me accountable on the panel, both Adam and Aaron, right? There's nothing that will disrupt my day more than a tweet or direct message or text from Aaron saying, yo, the water looks good in school again. But that's what we have to do, right? The most important thing in our community right now for everybody, we all have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Because if you're comfortable in the way that we're living, in the way that we're being portrayed, in the way that things are happening in our community, then you must be dead, right? You can't be comfortable in that. We have to be uncomfortable. Folks like myself have to be better. We have to continuously push the envelope each and every day. And I know, present company excluded, some of the reporters in town are tired of me saying, don't you get tired of talking to me about that? How about this? Or me tricking them to show up at some positive event when they want to ask me about who died last night, right? But we have to press. And what I wanted to say earlier, Stan, really quickly, is that you're right. Negative news sells. If it leads, it leads. But I always have my world. I grew up in the 90s, right? 80s and 90s. And I root myself. Basically, my world has always evolved around 80s and 90s hip-hop. And what I always will tell people is that the reason why Public Enemy's Fight the Power is like my first memory, and one of the songs that I remember, even though I shouldn't be able to remember when I was a kid, is because it played every 5 minutes on the radio. It played every 5 minutes on TV. But somewhere along the line, that switched. And it went from that being played all the time. It's not like that kind of music Adam loves J. Cole. It ain't like J. Cole ain't making music, but J. Cole gonna make it on the radio. Someone intentionally made a decision that we're gonna change it. We're no longer gonna put that out there. We're gonna consistently say that, you know, it used to be, when I was growing up, drug dealer music, now it's drug user music. We're gonna consistently say, this is what you have to be. And we have to acknowledge that if that's all they hear all day long, it doesn't matter what Aaron's telling them in the classroom. He's going to lose some of them. Because that's what they see. And that's also what they see when they go home. And they go home to people that are severely addicted. They go home to a community where they're living next to 3 vacant houses. They go home where they see people dying every day. And it's incumbent on all of us to recognize that. And we have to combat it in every field that we do. We have to share those positive skills. We have to use the platforms that we use. I try to use my platform. We know Aaron does. We know Adam does. We have to do that in order to challenge. And we have to challenge the people like me, right? Just think about how our city government has changed in just the time that I've been there. I have actually a poster in my office, right? When I first came on the council, it was literally just me and Nick and a bunch of old people. No disrespect. Old and many old and white. But now
out of respect,
we went from a council when there was only 2 people under the age of 40, then now there's gonna be 9. I was the first black person in Baltimore to sit in my seat. Right? We have to understand that. But for me, like the brother said, I'm not one of these people, and I love, every day I think about my grandparents who lived in rural North Carolina, who literally died feeding pigs and raising cows so that my father and my uncles can move here to provide the life that I now have after they worked at Bethlehem Steel and General Motors. But I look at that and I honor that and celebrate that. But that doesn't make me want to settle. It makes me want to say, well, damn. I gotta do 3 times better, because look what they were going through, and now I can't allow stuff like that to happen in a different way just because they're being nice to me. That don't mean that they don't hate me, but also it also makes me want to have the best. Once you've had the best, better ain't as good, and we have to continue to push that narrative on all of us. So know that you can hold me accountable. I got thick skin. I don't matter. You can say whatever you have to say, but I appreciate that, and we all have to be willing to do that. For example, I was with Jason this morning. I got my Mervo blue and gold on because we had graduation, and Jason was the keynote speaker. But as much as I love Channel 11, they didn't cover that Jason, their prime anchor, was there, right? That's something you think. 320 kids are now getting their high school diploma. I'll be going to BART later today. Those are the kind of things that we have to push. I know that I'm going to be pushing for us to push that on the cities, own TV station. Forget covering all these council meetings with me yelling and screaming at people. Go out in the community, show what Adam's doing, show what Aaron's doing. So that's what we have to change the narrative ourselves and be a part of it. So that's all I want to say.
Council President, make sure you ask Jason about why we weren't there.
I'm not getting into
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you, Council President.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned abandoned houses.
Yes, sir.
They were owned by someone at one time. They're owned by the city.
No.
But they have a lot of violations that aren't being collected.
Yes, sir.
Why aren't they being collected? People,
So it's a long conversation. Some of them are, right? So this is what has to happen with that, right? The longest process, I think, known to man is dealing with somebody who owns a vacant house. So let's just say that we in the 900 block of South Pulaski, right? And there's 10 vacants in there. And they're owned by the same person, right? All 10 are owned by the same person. What has to happen is we go out and we cite the person. Actually, we passed a law a couple of years ago. We raised the level of the fine. We go out, we cite the person. By law, we have to give them a certain amount of time to remedy. Then we give them another one. By law, we have to give them another term. Then we remedy. Then what normally happens is we take them to housing court. But we can't, just because, even though that guy owns the whole block, we can't just say we want to take him to court for all of these. We have to go individually for each one. And that can take up to 2 years to deal with just one house. So what has to happen for us, and this is something that I'll be talking to our state people about, is one, can we have that track go faster, right? We have to have that track go faster because the city doesn't control the court system. We can't continuously have this stuff because we know the impact it is having. Also, can they change some rules and laws that allow us to take them properties away from people faster? Some of it, and it depends on where you are, because they do a great job in putting houses in receivership, putting them up for people to renovate and sell. Now, folks like me who care about equity, I want to make sure that the people that get put back into their house look like the people that had to leave it because the neighborhood went to crap, right? So it takes a long time to do it, and it will be easy. If the city owned all the vacants, it would be easy, because then we can do whatever we want. But the problem is that we don't own them, and we have to go through this long legal process, because even someone who clearly doesn't care about the property of the neighborhood has rights in this country, so to speak. And that's why it's so difficult. And of course, we only have a finite amount of housing lawyers, right? They only have a finite amount of judges, and they're going to have their lawyer's going to postpone, something's going to happen. It just takes a lot of time to deal with them. And they've done a great job, and we're trying to figure out more. And I'm actually on a national housing task force with the National League of Cities. We're coming up ways to deal with housing crises, including vacancies, to see if there's different ways that we can do it. But the biggest problem is that we have to go to court, and it takes forever.
I have a question about that.
Yes, sir, bro.
So are you saying these absentee owners are still paying the taxes on these properties, but not the fines?
Yeah, some of them pay both taxes and the fine. Some people will just say, "Oh yeah, I pay the fine. I'll pay the fine. I'll pay the fine." And as long as they go out and did what they did, they put like the fancy little board on it, they fix the roof, they can leave it vacant. Like some of them do that, especially in areas where they think, yeah, like Hepkins coming in a couple of years, they can be a little north on Broadway. I'm gonna sit on this, and I bought this for $5. I can sell it for $100 in a couple of years. Some of them do that. So it just depends. And then some people don't take, and then we can take it. But that process takes. You gotta go to court. It takes a long time to do that.
Council President, thank you.
These last two folks here, let's
Yeah, all right. Thank you for the time. So I know that the theme kind of bounced around a little everywhere, but I really wanted to go back to your point where you were just talking about the extreme sports. And as to who I am, my name is John Williams. I work with that young lady right there, Brittany Young, who was
Baltimore hero.
Yep. And so with the organization that she created, the purpose is centered around those that are dirt bike riders. It's a subject here in Baltimore that everybody knows of. It is the popular sport here in Baltimore. It is a staple here. We watch many big companies come in and actually kind of monetize off of what is here illegal. And so that's what I really wanted to bring up and kind of put that conversation out there. And it's twofold. As, like I said, there is a young lady here in Baltimore who is on the ground doing what she can to change not only the perception of dirt bike riders, but change that pipeline. Having a young student or just a young Baltimore resident not go from interest in dirt bike riding to criminal at the age of 11. No, what we're trying to change is taking that young Baltimore resident to potentially a student who's interested in STEM, who can go back in this community and fix the dirt bike, and help those who are maybe have gone to jail and get them re-entered with actual jobs and economic development there. One of the main things I wanted to kind of set out, you know, if I bring up somebody like Miss Young, who's there to kind of support and help those people? So we talked about kind of the gatekeepers earlier. But what about those that are trying to become the gatekeepers, or in my eyes, that are already gatekeepers but don't have that platform? So just kind of wanted to dive into that conversation.
Are you talking about how to pitch a story? I'm confused. Are you talking about how to pitch a story?
No.
Okay.
Well, I think a lot of us, I think a lot of what you're talking about is already happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, me and Brittany have worked on countless projects together. You know what I mean? Like, and we're actually, every time we discuss something, our discussion centers around the idea of we want to work together, but it has to make sense for the both of us. I wouldn't want working with me to take away from all of the traveling and the fundraising and stuff like that she's doing, and vice versa. I'm in the trenches every day in the school system and doing my thing art-wise. We found a couple lanes that we feel like intersect, but that's really what the conversation needs to center around. Not whether or not we all have interest in working together, but what that work looks like. You know, even if you talk about those of us here on the panel, like I'm working with Adam and LBS on designing some stuff for one of their websites. Me and Kondwani have worked together before. He wrote the epilogue to my first book. You know what I mean? Like, there's always these points of intersection, but the question is, how do we get on the larger platforms and get the larger funding and support that will ultimately put you on that top level? Just by my assessment, and we've had this discussion several times before, we got to continue to do what we're doing. As we're working together, we got to run our races. You know what I mean? Because as I become more accomplished in the fields that I'm in, now the platform and the stage in which we can share to work together is bigger. Now, instead of taking care of 500 kids, we can do something that can provide for a few thousand. You know what I mean? And in order for that to happen, all of us have to run our races, but we got to be in communication with one another. We got to know where each other is at and what we have going on and how we can support, whether that would be financially or showing up to something or just sharing activities and information that is going on. But I think that oftentimes the perception is that crabs in the barrel idea actually applies to a lot of people that are here working in Baltimore. But pretty much everybody that I know in this room, I've already worked with. You know, I already support. You know what I'm saying?
So I just want to interject real quick. So